Alright guys, so this is your Unit 3 study guide. I'm going to be doing the left side with you, and then you are going to do the right side on your own. So on number 1, we're looking at the question: a piece of fabric that is shaped like a triangle has the side lengths of 4.3, 6, and 3.9. Will this piece of fabric fit in the corner of a square quilt? Explain. So since it's talking about something that's a triangle, that's telling me I should use my Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Making sure we remember that C has to be our longest side, which is our hypotenuse. So if we look at the 3 values we're given, C has to be 6, and then these other 2 are going to go in for A and B. So I'm going to substitute those values in. So I got 3.9 squared plus 4.3 squared equals 6 squared. So when I square these values, I'm going to get 15.21, 18.49, and 36. If I add 15.21 and 18.49, I get 33.7 is equal to 36. Now this is not true. These are not equal. So because these are not equal, it will not fit. Okay, and the reason is, right, if I have a rectangular quilt here, that means that the corner here has to be a right triangle. Okay, or a right angle, so that this triangle, for it to fit, has to be a right triangle. Well, if these 2 sides were equal, then it would be a right triangle. But since they're not, it is not a right triangle. So the answer is no, it will not fit. Right. And you can show your work to explain it, but the reason why is because a squared plus b squared does not equal c squared. So it is not a right triangle. All right. Same idea on number 2 here. So we're given this triangle, which is CAB. So I'm going to kind of just trace over it so you can see it a little bit better. So here's CA, AB, and CB. Okay, so we're looking at this triangle right here. So they're asking whether this is a right triangle. So if I know I'm looking at a right triangle, it means it has to be the Pythagorean theorem. I'm going to substitute these 3 values in, making sure the longest side has to be C. The other 2 are going to be A and B. So I've got 6 squared plus 8 squared is equal to 10 squared. Square, that's supposed to be a square. So 6 squared is 36, 8 squared is 64, and 10 squared is 100. If I add these 2, I do get 100 equals 100. This is a true statement. So because this is true, they say, is he correct that this is a right triangle? Yes, he is correct. And the reason is because it makes that Pythagorean theorem true. So that a squared plus b squared does equal c squared. And again, you could show your work to explain that as well, but that is why it works. So on to the next question. This one we have a grid that we have to count it. So we're just going to count the side lengths that go along the grid line. So on this one, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes. So the side length is 4. And this one we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes. So the side length is 5. Now we are looking for this distance right here. So we're looking for this distance. So that is going to be our C. So I'm going to substitute them in to my Pythagorean theorem. Remember, Pythagorean theorem is only used for right triangles. This is a right triangle. So these are going to be for A and B. So I'll get a squared plus b squared equals c squared, putting in 4 and 5 for A and B. I'm going to square these values. I'm going to get 16 and 25. Now because I'm looking for that longest side, I'm going to end up adding these 2 numbers together to get 41. And remember, since we want c and not c squared, we are going to take the square root of this value. Now, if you read the question carefully, it says leave your answer in exact form. That means leaving it as a square root. Now, the nice thing about this one on the test is it's multiple choice, so you won't accidentally make the mistake of making it a decimal. All right, so again, exact form means to leave it as a square root. Okay, so on number 4, you are actually having to draw in your right triangle. So they gave us the 2 points that they want us to find the distance between. Remember, we're going to connect those two using a straight line. That's going to be your hypotenuse, so that is C. Then you need to draw a right triangle by either going from your first point, going straight up and down, and then straight left and right, or the opposite. Doesn't really matter. So I like to go up first, but it doesn't really matter at all. So if I go straight up and then straight over, I get this right triangle right here. So this value is C. If I count this side length here, I believe I'm going to get 9. And if I count this side length right here, I get 7. So if I actually put those into my Pythagorean theorem and I square these values, so I got 7 squared plus 9 squared equals C squared. 7 squared is 49, 9 squared is 81. If I add those two together, I should get 130. So that when I take the square root, I will have to, like in my calculator, it's going to just give me the square root of 130 again, which is super helpful. I'm going to hit the little double arrow key right above the enter button to make it a decimal, and it should give me 11.4, so it should be D. Number 5 is very similar. That we are trying to find the distance between D and E. So I will have to draw a line between D and E. I'm going to draw a right triangle. It happens to hit this corner C if I draw it this way, but you don't have to go that way. If I count the side lengths, I actually get 4 and 5, and you may notice these are actually the same numbers from number 3. So if I treat it just like I did number 3, well, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A is 4, B is 5, and C is what I'm looking for on this side. 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25. If I add those together, I get 41. Now, to get just C, I need to take the square root, and you may notice all the answers are square roots. So the only one that matches what I have here is D. So number 6 is very similar to the ones we just did. So I have this triangle XYZ. I'm asked to find the perimeter, so that I'm going to add all the side lengths of this triangle up. Now to do that, I need to solve for X to Y and Y to Z because they do not go along the grid line, so I can't count them. So I'm going to draw me a right triangle starting at X, where I go straight up and straight over. To get to Y, you could also go over and then up, which will be inside here. So either one is fine. And then I'm going to count my side lengths. So this longest side here is 7. The shorter side here is 2. And I am looking for this distance between X and Y, which is C. So I'm going to take my Pythagorean theorem. I'm going to substitute in 2 for A and 7 for B. 2 squared is 4. 7 squared is 49. And when I add them together, I'm going to get 53. Now, do remember I do need to take the square root of that. So the square root of 53 when I round to the nearest unit, so it's actually 7.28 something. But 7.2 is closer to 7, so we're going to say that 7 is about what C is. Right? And I know it's weird because this length is 7 as well. That is not a problem, okay? So I'm just going to put this in purple so you can tell it's different. So we're saying that this side length right here is 7. All right, so if I do the same thing and I build a triangle off this other side to get this ZY, what you'll notice is it's actually the same size triangle as the one we just did. So, for example, the shortest side here is 2, the middle side is 7, and so we'd be looking for this. Well, we're going to do the exact same work, so this side would also be 7. And then we would just count X to Z on the bottom, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4 long. So our perimeter here, we'll be adding these values up. So 7 plus 7 plus 4. 7 plus 7 is 14. 14 plus 4 is 18. So that would be my final answer here. So number 7 is a word problem, and you need to make sure that you have your directions correct, because if those are off, then it might throw off your picture. So just to remind you your directions here, so it's never eat soggy waffles if you're going clockwise. So basically, we're going to draw the picture first. So it says the rec center is directly west of the Bass Pro Shop. So if Bass Pro Shop was here, and I'm going to label it with a B. It says it's directly west of that. So that means if I go straight west, that is where the rec center is. So it says the grocery store is located 4.2 miles south of the rec center. So if I go straight south, that is where the grocery store is. And it says it was 4.2 miles away. All right, and then it says the length of a straight line from the grocery store to the Bass Pro Shop. So if I go straight there is 6.6 miles. And they want to know the distance between the Bass Pro Shop and the rec center. So again, we're looking at a right triangle, so we're going to use our Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We're going to substitute in the values we know. So our right angle would be right here. So this side right here is our longest side at C. This one's going to be either A or B. So I'm going to put in 4.2 in for A. Again, you could put it in for B, and that would work just fine. And then I'm going to put in 6.6 in for C. Right, so if I actually square these values, 4.2 squared is 17.64. Bring down my B squared. And 6.6 squared is 43.56. Now, because I'm looking for one of the smaller sides, I'm actually going to end up subtracting these values so that I can get B squared. So when I subtract, I'm going to get 25.92. And then because I don't want B squared, I want just B, I'm going to take the square root. So I'll get that B is about, because it does tell me to round, it says to round to the nearest tenth. I got 5.0911, so on, so on, so on. But the 9 is going to make my tenths place round up. It's going to round to a 1. So this would be 5.1 miles. And then it does make sense to just double check. This distance between R and B could be 5.1 because it needs to be smaller than 6.6. If it wasn't, then I knew I did something wrong. All right, so on number 8, it says Brianna is planting a sapling. The garden center recommends that she stabilizes the sapling with 2 guy wires for the first few months. Now, guy wires, guys, are just things that attach to a point on like a pole or something like that, and then attach to the ground to help stabilize it. So it says, if she places the guy wires 6 feet up the trunk of the saplings and 5 feet from the base, how much wire would she need if she uses 2 guy wires? So they ask us to round to the nearest tenth. So if you look at the picture, they even gave you a picture. You can see kind of the right triangle here. I do want to mention that this length up here is also 5, as well as this length along the tree would also be 6. So it makes kind of like a rectangle. So we're trying to find this length right here. So I'm kind of looking at this top triangle because I feel like, I feel like it's a little bit easier for me to see. So I'm actually looking at this one. It's not perfect, but it's fine. All right, so there's our right triangle. So that means that this length that we're looking for is C. So I've got my formula, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'm going to put in these values in for A and B. So I have 5 squared plus 6 squared equals c squared. Well, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36. And when I add them together, I will get 61 equals c squared. Now remember, I need to take the square root of that to get c. And when I do, so I get that it is about 7.8 because it told me to round to the nearest tenth, right? Now the thing is, that is an answer choice, but that is not the correct answer choice because it says that she needs to use 2 guy wires. So in the picture, you see how it has the same distance again over here. So if this one's 7.8 and this one's 7.8, that means I have 2 of them. And when I multiply that by 2, I'm going to get 15.6. And it is 15.6 feet worth of wire.